Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Lloyd Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickes, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker from the congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville. Thank you very much for being here today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to begin with a moment of personal gratitude and honor the memory of Neil Straussman, who used to work here and who passed away this past year.
Thank you.
He set it up so that I would be able to join you on Election Day in the past many years, and I'm honored to be given the opportunity once again. Zichrono livracha, may Neil's memory always be for a blessing.
Amen.
As the Commissioner's Court opens this Election Day morning, I ask God, or the source of one's personal spirituality, to open our hearts and minds to one another, because it's been hard. Dealing with this pandemic has been hard. Dealing with this election has been hard. Keeping our county, our schools, our lives going, it's been hard. And it's been made harder due to all of the division and mistrust and disinformation. And so I come here today with great appreciation for all of you and for everyone who is helping to hold it all together. And I want to elevate the words of Leviticus 19:18, Ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha, which is often translated, love your neighbor as yourself. 1900 years ago, Rabbi Akiva called this the greatest principle in the Torah. In the 16th century, the Italian rabbi Sforno explained that loving your neighbor is not only about caring for others. It's also about how we judge one another. It's about trying to place ourselves in another person's situation and judging them as we would judge ourselves, even if they disagree with us, even if they voted in a different way. And it bears all of our attention, especially now, to note that immediately preceding the commandment to love your neighbor as yourself is not to hate another in your heart or to hold a grudge. Not hating another in your heart, not holding a grudge, love your neighbor as yourself. They are all connected. So on this day and every day, I pray that this court be granted the empathy to love your neighbors and your citizens and all who come before you as yourselves. May this court be granted the understanding and wisdom to lead us with justice and compassion. We thank you for this court, for its work, and for the opportunity to take part in our democracy. And may today be a day of peace across our county and across our land. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be your will.
Thank you very much.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Rabbi. We appreciate very much you coming out today. Thank you. And I thought as you came forward that Neil is looking down on us and probably in some way sometimes just laughing a little bit at all the stuff that's going on, knowing Neil. So again, thank you for bringing his name to our attention here, especially today.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Mr. Mangus.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, several agenda announcements as it relates to the administrator's office. There is a new court communication in your red folder as it relates to item A1. Also, there is a revised and new court communication related to A5 in your red folder. Members of the court, as we have done in the past, we're going to take certain things out of order this morning. Once we get to the administrator section, we're going to ask Vinny to come forward and make his presentation. Before we take any audience participation forms and things such as that, I think that we will skip down to the administrator's A5. This is the agreement with Meals on Wheels, and take action on that, and then we'll get into the audience participation forms. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, sir. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of October the 27th.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, let me get myself a little bit more organized so I can take over some of Commissioner Allen's space.
There you go again.
I know. I'm really looking forward to you come back, I think. Again, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we are not doing our traditional employee recognition. We will, at some point, continue and catch up. The catch-up will not be all on the same Tuesday because we ain't got that much time, but we will do it on consecutive weeks until we get everybody caught up, and I'll spend most of my week calling folks and catching up. But we do have a little video that we've run, and take it away.
Good morning. Because of the COVID-19 virus, we have, and the restrictions that it's placed upon our meetings, I'm sorry to say that we're going to have to postpone our employee recognition. That is one of my favorite times of the month, and so I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to do that this month, but I promise you that when everything gets back to normal or whatever our new normal is, we'll begin those again, and we'll make up for those meetings and for those months that we've had to miss. Again, I want to thank you personally for what you do for Tarrant County, especially during this time when we've had to face the challenges of the COVID-19 virus. Our employees have always stood up for the test, and you've done exactly the same thing during this time frame. You're what makes Tarrant County such a great place to live, to work, and to raise our family. Again, thank you very much, and I look forward to getting back to our routine of being able to recognize our valued employees on that first Tuesday of every month. Thank you.
And here are our people for the month of November, I think. Again, let's congratulate those folks. We will get back to them. So with that, I will move that we receive and file the employee recognition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you our consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Public hearings, come on down.
Morning, Judge, members of the court. I have for you today two public hearings I'd like to seek your approval on. The first one is it's requested that the Commissioners Court conduct a public hearing to consider the placing of a stop sign in Pyramid Acres Subdivision on Tinsley at Pyramid Boulevard in Precinct 1. This location is due to the expanding, construction that's going on out there with that subdivision, and this road is now connected and we need a stop sign there. It's my recommendation that y'all approve that.
Okay, at this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing.
Move approval of the placement of a stop sign at that intersection.
Second.
Second.
We have motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The next one is a public hearing requesting considering the placement of a posted speed limit of 30 miles per hour in the Aston Meadow Subdivision in Precinct 4. We don't have any records of this, ironically, for a posted speed limit up there. We've done some studies and recommend that 30 miles an hour be posted. Now, typically, we do studies and we go off that, but with the COVID pandemic going on, a lot of people are staying at home. Believe it or not, this affects the traffic numbers, which affects the speed limits in some cases, theoretically. And so what we'll do is we'll post 30 for now and come back and look at this again in a couple of years when we assume it'll be back to normal and we can get good counts out there associated with those speeds. And so I recommend a 30 miles per hour on all those ones listed in your court communication.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There being none, then I will close the public hearing.
Move approval of 30 mile per hour speed limit.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before we get into the next item, I am going to just make a comment that I should have probably made earlier. We have, beginning this week, November the 6th through the 20th, we have our online auction for United Way. This is in lieu of the Eat Yourself Across the County effort of fried catfish and hamburgers and tacos and breakfast and whatever else we have done or we're going to do. So this will start, and I think we've got probably close to 100 items, if not more, by this time. I know that one of the items is going to be that if we hit our goal of 120,000 or 25% appreciation, we're going to put an item in there that says you get to take the clippers and do one pass over the head of meat. And so I'm hoping that everybody will take advantage of that and bid that up. You know, Wilder was saying he wanted to do it. We'll see how badly he wants to do it. But we're moving in that direction, and I would just encourage everyone to. You go into a portal. It's all online this year, and so let's start that. And if you've not done it before, consider maybe doing $1 a paycheck. That's $26 over the year, and we just really need to do everything we can help. The United Way has been great throughout this pandemic. We're about to recognize another organization that's been doing super work well above and beyond what they've done in the past and what they've been called on to do in the past, and they've never blinked an eye about getting in there and helping out. So United Way online auction begins the 6th. Let's get after it. Any other announcements that anybody has at this time? She must not be able to see us. She's shaking her head no. We just thought maybe you had something you wanted to say or announce.
Well, I mean, today's election day, but everybody knows that. So hopefully everyone, if you did not vote during early vote, that you will vote today. I know we're seeing historic turnout, not just in Tarrant County, but throughout the state. So please make sure you make your voice heard in this critical election. Thank you.
And before you head to the before you head to your polling location, pull up the map, tarrantcounty.com, elections, helpful links. The map will show up as far as the wait times, and you can make sure you're going to a polling location with a smaller wait and not a longer wait. So please do that. If you've not voted, get out and do that, and let's wrap Election Day up and get all the commercials behind you. Although the commercials have been a nice interruption to the Cowboy games.
Great way to put that.
At this point in time, I believe, Mr. Manius, we're going to item 5.
Actually, what we'll do, we'll first have have her make his presentation, and then we'll do that. Or we can go, I'll tell you what, let's do item 5 first.
Hyder's gonna,
Hyder's not here.
Vinny.
that's what I thought. I said, well, I thought Hyder was doing something else today, but maybe not. Maybe he's here. Vinny, come on down. This is probably one day you're not going to be the headline.
Yes, sir. And I must say that last week was you, today it was Mr. Manius. I would like for Hyder to come by, and I'm okay with all of that. Let him take. I know it's infectious.
Let's not be talking about infectious things. Right? That's just not the right word to use at this point in time. Try something else.
All right. Okay, so we're back with our briefing for COVID-19. And as you can see, the cases across the globe are surging. I actually have a chart to show you. We're in really, the term has been a world of hurt. Yes, a lot is happening across the globe. 46.8 million cases, 1.2 million deaths. U.S. data is surging, 9.3 million cases and 231,000 deaths. Texas is starting to actually experience a surge, even though they were sort of slower. I think Tarrant County experienced that a little bit sooner than the rest of the state. 867,000 cases and 17,500 deaths. 8.5 million tests have been conducted, out of which I think Tarrant County has about 533,000 tests according to DSHS. Our data in Tarrant County, of course, more than 65,000 cases, and 723 deaths. More than 52,000 recovered. But this is the chart I was trying to talk about earlier, that the global situation has actually gotten pretty bad over the last few weeks. As you can see, we had our small rise, then a plateau, again a rise into July, and then a sort of a plateau. But look at the curve. The acceleration has been too fast globally. Now, of course, India and U.S. are contributing to a lot of this, two big countries with lots of numbers. But what got my attention is that we're hitting several days last week that were above 500,000 cases a day. That's 500,000 cases a day that are being added worldwide. That's pretty significant. U.S. numbers, as you can see, we're actually past our July peak. So we're definitely onto some new surge happening. And, Texas is starting to certainly, show an uptick as well. But the main story here on the larger chart for the U.S. data is that last week, one of the days, I think it was Friday, we got close to like 100,000. It was 99,000 and some change. And for the entire week, I think there were plenty of days that were above the 80,000 mark. I think we got close to that in July. We had like 78,000 or something on the peak day in July. So certainly the numbers are surging across the country as well. Here's the situation in Texas. A definite uptrend has developed in our cases. And then the positivity rate is certainly up from where we were back in late September. We were at 6.1%, I think, and now we're at 9.43%. There's a little bit of a downtick in that positivity rate, so I'm kind of staying hopeful that means that we're going to have a little bit of a break in the cases, but it could just be, cautious optimism here. Who knows what the fall weather really brings. Hospital trends in Tarrant County. So our trend data is certainly, not giving us any breaks. We're definitely seeing a surge, even though the last week, I think, seems to have stabilized a little bit on the hospitalizations. We're hanging around the 500 mark. I think we had 510 in the hospital. We saw a little dip into about 480s, I think, over the weekend and back up again. But I'm liking that there's at least a plateau, giving us a little bit of a room here. But overall, the trend is up. Here's the epi curve for our case trends. As you can see, we're continuing on with week-over-week increases. A different picture than what we saw back in end of June to early July. It literally only took 3 to 4 weeks to really rapidly escalate. This time around, it's a little bit more cautious. That means things have changed. People are following advice. We're wearing masks and other options that people were asked to do. I think the behavior change is sort of settled in. But as you can see, there are still a lot of cases happening. So certainly, we're not out of the woods on this, and I do expect if nothing changes, then we're going to, match the peak or exceed. Our positivity rate is at about 11%, so as you can see, it kind of bounces around. I think the recent uptick we had was about 12%, and I think it got like 12.9 and backed off to 11 something. So we're kind of flatlined on the positivity rate. And a similar picture, sort of a flat line developing on our COVID-like illness. And the reason I mention is now there's 2 indicators, well, maybe even 3, that are starting to flatline a little. So that gives me a little bit of optimism that maybe we're kind of plateauing and we can bend the curve down. You just never know what's going to happen in the future, but it's flatlined for about 2 weeks here on the COVID-like illness, so that's somewhat good news. So how do we bend the curve? Certainly, take your flu shot. If you haven't taken it this year, there's plenty available, and people are encouraged to go take their flu shot. We want to make sure that flu is out of the equation, and that way we only have COVID to contend with. Continue to wear masks everywhere. Stay at home as much as possible. There are things that are important, like going to work and doing other things that are important for your family, but there are things that we can avoid. So there's a little bit of a sacrifice on all our part to make sure that our county continues to stay safe and not have too many cases. Staying 6 feet away from others and avoiding large group gatherings that are not necessary, and ultimately following public health guidance and advice. So that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Vinny?
All right. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't get to my button fast enough. Vinny, I did have a question about the flu vaccines. Will you give an update on that?
Yes, I was just reminding Mr. Manius. I think he was going to cover it under his section, but we got lucky. So between us and JPS, we were able to buy, I think the goal we had set was about 20,000 doses. 16,500 are now on hand. So we're working with JPS and the FQHC to start getting those distributed. I know that we've arranged for a transfer for about first 1,500 doses to the FQHC because they were really running short on that supply. And the plan is, that we're going to have free vaccine available to the public. Most of these entities do still need an administration fee. So it's going to be a $10 administration fee, but we're hoping that our county commissioners, you guys, help offset that cost by offering that to our partners, that they will be able to get reimbursement for $10, so the public really doesn't see a charge. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I know we're working on some agreements with these entities to make sure that deal is on paper so y'all can officially approve it. But given the sensitivity of the time, we're into November, I'm hoping that y'all are okay that we move forward with the plan as discussed.
Yes, move forward.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Yes, I agree.
Okay, members of the court, we can go to the administrator section, and we're going to go to item A5. We do have an audience participation form as relates to that one. Ms. Judson is asked to speak to the court. I'll be more than happy to lay this out first, and then we'll listen to
If you'll lay it out, then we'll call on this.
Okay, so members of the court, on item A5, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an agreement between Meals on Wheels of Tarrant County for the distribution of CARES Act Corona relief funds as part of the non-governmental assistance program. Just very briefly, we've already provided funding to Meals on Wheels as relates to their efforts and their extended efforts because of the coronavirus. However, there is another entity that Meals on Wheels has taken over their activities also. And in order to ensure that Meals on Wheels has sufficient funding to carry out their mission, we're asking that you approve this agreement. This agreement is for an amount of $644,095.05. And so we're asking your approval. And as I said, Ms. Judson is here to address the court.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to call on Carla to come forward and to make any comments you'd like to make at this time. Again, thank you for everything y'all have been doing since back in February when this was just getting started.
Thank you so much, Judge. Judge and Commissioners, I want to express our sincere appreciation for everything that y'all have done for us throughout this entire COVID disaster, pandemic, whatever we want to call it. Meals on Wheels has seen a dramatic increase in the requests for services. Prior to October 1st, we had seen a 25% increase in clients and about a 50% increase in number of meals. We are now have taken on, as of October 1, the congregate meal people, and we're delivering those to their homes or to a former senior center where the participants can pick them up. It's in a format of 5 frozen meals. And then we also, starting in March, we started what we call Supplemental Nutrition program, which was for frozen meals and fresh produce from the food bank for people above the age of 60 who were isolated at home and were fearful to get out. So between all of this, we are now serving over 6,000 meals a day right here in Tarrant County. And needless to say, this has taxed all of us in every area of the agency. Certainly our kitchen, our distribution equipment, staffing, we've had to add new staff. And so we are most grateful for any consideration that you have to help us in being able to meet all of these increasing needs. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments at this time?
For Kristen, this new funding is based upon what increase?
Okay.
How's it calculated?
This is additional kitchen equipment to help meet the needs, as well as distribution equipment, delivery vans to be able to take it to our distribution sites because of the increased number of meals, as well as some staffing issues, computers, printers, that kind of thing, primarily.
Kristen,
again, just trying to meet the needs.
Okay. Kristen, did you have any other comments at this time?
No, that's okay. Commissioner Brooks, there is no duplication from the initial funding provided. These are additional, these are incremental expenses beyond the first, and they have already expended all of the funds awarded in the first contract.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Allen, did you have a question?
No, Kristen answered it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Again, thank you very much for everything y'all have been doing. We appreciate you very much. I can't say your collaboration, you're working with United Way, with Food Bank, with Catholic Charities, volunteers, 60 and better, all of those. We can't tell you how much we appreciate everything y'all been doing.
Well,
and the way, for that matter, everybody has pitched in to help.
And that's what I needed to say. Everybody has pitched in. Our volunteer base has increased, the community donations, as well as help from this court and many other entities. So thank you very much. We are most grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And when this is over, come see us.
We will.
So, Your Honor, now we could go to the first part of the administrator section. We do have audience participation forms. I do not believe we have any call-ins, but we have several in-persons and also several that have simply submitted a comment.
Okay, so we'll begin with, if you don't mind, we'll begin with the comments. And the first comment is Troy Paul.
These are Mr. Paul's comments. Mr. Whitley and Commissioners, as of this afternoon, November 2nd, I have not heard any talk of you rescinding your mask mandates. There is so much evidence to refute the wearing of masks that it just makes Tarrant County look ridiculous to even have such a mandate. If you believe the science of wearing a mask, then you do not believe in the science at all. You simply believe in a political ideology. one that is about controlling the most minute details of a person's life. You are complicit in attempting to remove our God-given rights and our hard-earned freedoms. Sirs and madam, this rests on your shoulders and is already a part of your legacy. History will remember you for the tyranny that you imposed on the citizens of this great county. You have made us a laughingstock to the rest of the state, although I'm sure you will not be dismayed since there are so many other leaders that agree with your tyranny.
Next is Shannon Paul.
These are Miss Paul's comments. It amazes me how week after week truth is presented to you, yet each of you have hardened your heart to it. The deceiver is only accountable when the deception is still hidden. The moment it is brought into the light, the receiver of that deception becomes accountable also. We are each responsible for what we do or don't do with truth. Judge and commissioners, you have each been presented the truth multiple times by multiple people over the months. I would like to hear from you, our elected officials. I would like you each to bear the burden of proof that masks work. Not, I talked to some folks, but hard science facts from peer-reviewed, randomized, controlled trials kind of proof. You do some homework and present your proof to the citizens of Tarrant County. We are all accountable for our own words and actions. You are now each accountable for what you do or don't do with the truth. It is past time to leave the deception behind and lift the mask mandate in Tarrant County.
Next is Robert Dansby.
These are Mr. Dansby's comments. With good intentions, Tarrant County and the state of Texas have imposed mask requirements and restrictions on individuals, civic organizations, and businesses. As a result, many individuals have lost all or part of their income and many businesses have closed. COVID infections and deaths are routinely reported by the county, but not the economic and social or societal impacts. This is not an attempt to minimize the virus' human impact, but more of a suggestion for the county to report out the other impacts too. How many individuals have seen their income reduced or eliminated as a result of the COVID orders? How many businesses have had to close, sometimes permanently? How much money have these business owners lost? How many churches and civic organizations are no longer allowed to provide what I consider essential services? What is that cost to society? My hope is that by weighing all the expected costs and benefits, the county and state may provide a better balance in future orders.
Next is Francisco Latimer.
These are Mr. Latimer's comments. I try to be the voice of kids with learning disabilities. Their needs are not being considered with the prolonged mandates and disruptions to life they face daily. During these months, many kids with special needs or other issues have regressed in their development due to the forced situation they are in. I have seen my little sister, who has both attention and behavioral disorders or issues, take a large step back during virtual meetings before summer. She was making strides in her development and overcoming her issues in school, but after virtual learning and now returning to a much different environment, she has regressed to the point where she is being put into special education because she is not able to handle the changes in structure and expectations. She is not alone. I don't agree that we should be choosing to disrupt kids' lives so much over a virus with mild symptoms in children and a very high survival rate versus causing a forever problem with the development of a younger generation.
Next is James Shelton.
These are Mr. Shelton's comments. There are participants that consistently speak to the court about various issues related to the mask mandates, and while it seems likely that the court is not really listening or does not really care about the opinions of the citizens, I want to make a point about the subject matter of the speakers' messages. The views expressed by the speakers might be seen as selfish depending on your political affiliation or your opinion of the mask mandates, but they are doing so with more than their own needs in mind. There have been speakers pointing out various inconsistencies, overlooked or unintended consequences, dangers, and misinformation of the mask mandates and prolonged mask usage. These speakers are here to speak out on behalf of the people affected who might not realize that their voice matters or that their voice needs to be heard. They are thinking of every citizen, including you, your spouses, your children, and the potential harm that prolonged mask usage can cause.
Judith Shelton.
These are Mrs. Shelton's comments. When we visit to voice our opinions and are not allowed to be in court, we are held in the time-out room to wait our turn to speak. In the time-out room last week, one of the speakers had pictures of members of the court in various gatherings without masks on. I was shocked that many of the speakers who have been regular visitors during these times could not recognize some of the members of the court in the pictures because we don't get to actually see you in court without masks. It made me think of the problems that we are creating in our community by requiring public officials, police, and others to constantly wear masks. How good is it for the community when police cannot recognize the public servants that work for them, help them, or otherwise interact with them on a daily basis? What impression does this make on our children that see these officials? I believe that rushing to these mandates without thinking about the various issues they may cause was a poor decision. And that's all the comments that I have.
Okay, I guess I do want to ask Benny one question that I forgot to ask him, and I had a conversation with the CEOs of the hospitals, and they expressed, that they still feel very comfortable with where we are from a standpoint of being able to keep the hospitals open. One of the comments they made was that they are seeing almost no flu patients within the hospitals. Have you seen any indication of, as far as the flu goes, and the number of folks with the flu this year?
Currently on the COVID-like illness chart, the flu line seems to be staying low. It's not perking up, as we normally see seasonally. But as you know, flu typically starts to percolate around Thanksgiving, and then the second peak occurs around in February. So there's a lot of flu season left. Okay. Now, what we know from overseas, from the Southern Hemisphere, they had a next to nothing flu season. So hopefully that carries over here. I mean, things can change because, it depends on when their flu season was on, they were in a lockdown scenario, so that helped. We're not, so it could be different. But if it's mild in the Southern Hemisphere, there's hope that it will be mild here as well.
Well, again, the hospital CEOs felt like they were seeing very little, if any, flu patients in the hospital. Yeah, it's very low right now. Yes, sir. And their comment was the masks are working. Yes, sir.
All of these things help. The masking helps. People have rushed to get the vaccine. That helps because if we start early and a lot more people take it, it tends to, lower the activity that you're going to have. It's an infectious illness. So if there's a seed of illness, right, it's going to spread if people are not protected. But if people rush ahead and protect themselves, then that illness really doesn't spread. I mean, that's prime example right here.
Thank you, Benny.
Right, thank you.
Okay, at this point in time, I will now call on the folks who are here in person. The first individual I'll call is Jody, followed by Blanca, followed by Janet, followed by Sharon.
Good morning, Jody.
For the record, what is taking place here is actually pre-organized crime for the likes of those in authority and in your position. Such sites as deagle.com, that's www.deagle.com, deagel.com, shows planned depopulation statistics such as with the New World Order. These set-up-to-fail processes which debilitate the larger part of the naive population has been set up to asset strip individuals of their property in the guise of protection through the COVID pandemic. This will only be known entirely by high-level Freemasons, and unless symbology and numerology is recognized, the media facade goes largely unrecognized. Although this has been how the large corporations have taken out small businesses in the past, it has not been known until now that this is operated from the Phoenix scam and likewise the mortgage fraud, which all operate via the name and capitals. I have addressed this to you individually and now alerting the public at large to your benefiting and unaccountability and challenge the legal system to prove this wrong on your behalf. The system operates wrongly, is guilty until proven innocent. I put this to you that you are in the same position in the face of the public inquiry. The phrase order out of chaos is now blatantly obvious as the principle being used in manipulations that are becoming known rapidly, which are utilizing psychological and emotional abuse for isolating and alienating family loved ones, imposing mental health ailments, and using them to be exploited like nursing home segregations. Since I have been notified, I have investigated and urge other members of the public to do the same. I recognize these patterns having gone through the family fraud court process. The public is being provoked by unlawful orders, our loss of income and resources, and forcing people to be dependent on the state. Let it be known that the aims of a one-world government is now obvious, and the public is being set against the government facade that we are now in. The agenda now matches the 1666 Great Fire of London ruse and its bubonic plague pandemic, which was used to sneak in the Setway KV Trust Act of 1666, which made all bond equity profiteering possible. Likewise, the 1918 Spanish flu, which followed on from the Titanic flu, all corresponds to the convenient sinking of the Titanic, the loss of the stock exchange brokers on board celebrating, which deliberately caused the stock exchange crash at that time, and which matches the same great reset we now face. The Federal Reserve conveniently started 616 days after the sinking of the Titanic. This also conveniently corresponds to World War I, which, despite what most people would think, the central banking and large corporations with the media actually flourished. This should leave the public curious and needing to investigate CERCO, SERCO, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation with their operating lockstep, which matches the waves of lockdowns we are experiencing. I would ask you if you are covering for all these and pose questions to you as in the past, but predictably, they will be met by the regular wall of silence. Let it be known this is a sign of being complicit by all of you.
Thank you, Jody. Next is Blanca, followed by Janet, followed by Sherrod. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you all for having us and to listen to our concerns. One of the biggest issues that befalls us right now is the repetition of lies over and over again. When a lie is told enough times, people begin to think it's the truth. If someone continues to repeat that lie over and over again, the consequences are inevitable. We're facing the biggest election in our lives because we're facing good versus evil. We're facing tyranny versus freedom. We're facing a nation, one nation under God, for a godless society and a godless nation. This mask may seem like it's just a mask thing, but the big picture is so much bigger because all of our freedoms are hanging on a thread. How we vote today will make a big, big impact, not just here, but in our nation. We must fight continuously for the freedoms that God has given to us. We must fight for the freedom that God gave his only begotten Son that we can be free. Freedom, it comes from God. But to keep it, we must fight. To keep it, we must stand strong. To keep it, we must come against these mandates. The government cannot, should not, and does not tell us what we have to do. We tell the government what we want. The government does not run us. That's what happens in a communist nation. That's what's happened in Laos, in Venezuela, in Cuba, in all of these communist countries.
1 minute.
This is America, the land of the free. This is America, the land of God. How we will see the future for our children and our grandchildren depends on the stands that we take here, the stands that we take at the polls, that we stand for freedom, that we stand for faith, that we stand for life, not for death. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Janet Jackson, followed by Sherrod Perry, followed by Doug Hines.
I would prefer you not lock that down. I would prefer you leave it alone.
Well, that's not your deal.
Germs are not going to kill us. They're actually good for our bodies, unbeknownst to like the idiocy that's going on here.
3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Janet Jackson, and I hope I do not break down and lose it today, because you do not realize what you are doing to this country. And I don't think you have ears to hear, and I don't think you have eyes that are willing to see. I think they have been hardened, and I think you will continue to choose to harden your heart and harden your ears. You are not for the people. I can tell you by what I see. I can tell you by what I hear, and I can tell by the actions each one of you take. Cook's Children admits an alarming rate of suicidal patients, some as young as 4 years old. 4! What is wrong with you people? You're letting this mask thing destroy our society. People are committing suicide because of the psychological damage this mask is doing. And you are all sitting up there in your pious seats, high and mighty, funneling in funds from Fema to line your pockets for this county, for this facade, instead of caring for the people and ministering to them. These people matter. One of our own girls in this group, her next door neighbor's dad ran out screaming, "Call 911, call 911. My son has committed suicide." Y'all do not give a damn. You don't. Not one of you. Not only that, you have someone in this group who wants to ask you to assist them in ending their life. But I guarantee that will not prick your heart, because you are not a caring person. You have all hardened your hearts.
You have 1 minute.
And any of you that sit in here and go along with this facade, you should all be ashamed. And you are a disgusting, despicable person.
You will not be allowed to speak again.
He stands up here and
Ms.
lies.
Jackson?
The flu exists. They are covering it up with COVID. It's more lies, it's more fraud, it's more deceit. And you go along with it.
Be careful.
You are despicable. You're disgusting. I pray for y'all every week. I pray hoping God will soften your hearts. But you won't. Because just like Pharaoh in Egypt, God hardened his heart because he was unwilling to hear. And God has hardened your hearts because you are unwilling to hear and you are unwilling to turn from your wicked ways. Very wicked ways.
Sherrod Perry, followed by Doug Hines, followed by Robert Bucher.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. All right, so again, like as Tanasia explained, cases are spiking locally. Cases are spiking in many countries in Europe, in India, and again, when throughout this whole pandemic, I'm always asking why. Why would cases be spiking now, and why are they spiking in the places that they're spiking? Because many of the countries, such as, I'll just name a few, like, Spain, France, Germany, such and such, in Italy. Many of these countries we're seeing spikes in cases, they had mask mandates. They had shutdowns. And I've seen charts where they implement a mandate, they implement a mask mandate, and instead of seeing cases go down, they actually see cases go up. So there's no clear evidence to me that masks work. Just from looking at the data and the charts that I wish I had brought them, but I haven't seen strong evidence where you put in a mask mandate, cases go down. I haven't seen that. I've seen all directions in all different states, in countries. And then they also want to say that the folks who are not wearing masks are the reason for the spike. But again, I can just tell you right here in my own county, I see mask compliance everywhere I go. I see a sea of masks. So to blame the spike on this tiny minority of non-mask wearers, to me, that doesn't hold water for me. I would have to see some evidence of that. When they get a case, again, we've talked about what a case is, and even that term is still unclear to me, because it's a positive test, I assume. But first of all, is that person sick? To me, if you're not sick at all, if you're not showing any symptoms whatsoever, why are we now defining that as a case when the person is healthy but they test positive? And we've talked about the test in here, I have and others have, that a positive test,
1 minute.
A positive test could be a false positive. We've talked about that as well. I've talked about it and many others have. And again, the false positives could just be due to many reasons. It could be the cycles. I have... I do have a couple of articles. Just one example, in New York State, they took like a sample of like 800 positive tests, and they found that at 40 cycles, at 40 cycles they got 872 positive tests at 40 cycles. But if they had used a cutoff of 30 cycles, then 43% of those tests would have went from positive to negative. So from going from 40 cycles to 35 cycles, yes, 43% of those positives becomes negatives. So the number of cycles is important, and it can affect your positivity. But again, the point just as they've already touched on, this is all part of a larger plan, and they're even telling us now that, just as Fauci's saying, a vaccine is not going to end this. Okay, they're saying that yes, even after a vaccine, you're still going, that vaccine won't stop it. So you'll still be required to wear masks. You'll still be, we'll still have distancing. And until 2022.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Doug Hines. Good morning.
Morning, Judge, Commissioners. You were right to ask about the flu, in my opinion, because I think the flu, like where's the flu, is a lot like where's Hunter. We got to know where the flu is, and we need to find it. And it disappeared. It did not. This year, 2020, is the year of fear. It doesn't have to be that way at all. So much of 2020 COVID misery is self-induced. It's what we're doing to ourselves, our cities, our county, our state, and country. And it makes it so bad. All this misery is self-induced. For example, we've imprisoned our school-age kids in plexiglass solitary confinement cells. It's as if we're performing some kind of mass psychological experiment on our kids and young adults who, while basically immune from COVID death, zero in Tarrant County, are being subjected to physical and psychological torture. Look at Governor Newsom's Thanksgiving instructions. Oh, we can have 3 families at most may attend a local family gathering, and no more than 2 hours, must be outside, and don't speak loudly, or you'll kill grandma. We've made 2020 a living hell. First they said we're all going to die, and then the message morphed into, you're going to kill people. Stay home, stay away from family and friends, the sick, the needy, put on a mask, shut up and obey. When will it end? Why do we do this to ourselves? Easy answer, fear. Fear sells, fear controls, fear causes people to give up their freedom for, quote, safety, but fear is a liar. Fear distorts our perception of reality, produces worry and anxiety, which by definition is being afraid of potential danger. That's what anxiety is. If this weren't true, why would Tarrant County and Texas mask mandates endure when proven to be not only ineffective in stopping the spread of COVID, but also harmful for those forced to wear them? Headaches, lack of oxygen, unhealthy carbon dioxide buildup, immune suppression, lack of social contact, and especially harmful to our youngsters. The truth about fear is just as FDR said many years ago, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Or as in the Bible, Luke 12, 25 through 31, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? We've got to stop this. We've got to get back to normalcy. We've got to return to where we were before all this thing swept over us like a sea of evil. And that's exactly where we're at, a big sea of evil. We got to stop this. We got to do it now. There's also great rewards for those who can get past fear. Everybody can cower in the face of fear. Let's look at who got past fear in the great rewards. David facing Goliath in the Israeli-Philistine war. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Great rewards are there for those who conquer fear and move to the other side. And I'm here to ask you today, don't fear this, conquer it. Abandon the mask mandate, declaration of emergency, and all other COVID restrictions. Return self-determination and responsibility back to the people where it belongs, and your rewards as leaders will be immense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Robert Bucher.
My name is Robert Bucher, and I'm going to start off with the executive orders, which I have here, 29, and then I believe I have 32. I looked over these executive orders, and none of them are signed by a legislator. Imagine that. No surprise there. I had a speech laid out. I'm not sure I'm going to have time to get to it, but I want to say that we can have the World Series with no mask on. Lovely leader. Arlington Mayor. Imagine that. Again, we can have the World Series, but no, let's not have the stockyards. Imagine that. Betsy Price, August the 8th, no mask on. I love this picture right here because on the behind her it says, no mask, no service. Walk straight through the door, white dress on, no mask. Don't see her ticketing. Don't see Enchilada Olay being ticketed. We'll leave that there. More pictures, more evidence. No mask. Where's their ticket at? We have this is actually not that long ago, a lovely doctor. Lovely doctor, no mask on, in a room. Imagine that. More district clerk, no mask on. Imagine that. Once again, here's the doctor. No mask on. Imagine that. I mean, countless pictures. Recently, deep into pandemic, deep in it. And we're still going to go down this road. We're having upticks according to the public health director, but we have a mask mandate. What point does that start to say, hey, wait a minute, this ain't working? We have the mask, we wear the mask, but we're still having upticks. What's the problem? I'm still getting 20 emails from Keller Center of Advanced Learning, constantly getting the mass saying, we got positive cases, 14 days quarantine. They are mass Nazis. You better not pull your mask down. They have partitions. They're still getting the COVID. So what's the deal? Is it working or not? It's not. It's not working. It's not working. And there's plenty of violations that's done in this the mandate, the order from the governor down to the locals. All the Constitution says it. Only legislation can stop or suspend any laws. But the DA constantly says, oh, you're good, you're doing right, when the Constitution is the end-all, be-all, period. There's no federal thing that counteracts it. I've looked up and down. I've talked to attorney friends of mine. They said, no, there's not. So what are we doing? We're just going to keep doing this for what? I mean, what's the gain? Who gained? What gains? If we're still having upticks, what's the gain? I'm asking a serious question. What is the gain? Nobody knows because nobody cares except for us that are up here for our rights and freedoms. If you want to wear the mask, I have absolutely no problem with it. But if I choose not to, that's my individual right. That's my freedom.
Thank you, Mr. Bucher.
Yes, sir.
That concludes all of the audience participation forms that we have this week. Mr. Mayes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we can now go to the administrator section item A1. And I believe that Rachel from Guidehouse, are you on this morning?
I am on, yes. Hi, GK.
Good morning. Guidehouse will make their presentation, and then we will drill down a little bit deeper into some of the statistics on our 4 pillars. And so, Rachel, I'll go ahead and ask you to begin.
Okay, great. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. As GK mentioned, this is Rachel from Guidehouse. I'll be joined today by Sean, my colleague, who is leading on the FEMA PA line, on the FEMA PA project. So we can advance to the project side, we'll get started. So we've adjusted this slide a little bit to emphasize the current and recent activities and reduce some of the repetition. So we'll just begin with the recent activities. Last week, we drafted the presentation materials for the November 3rd office hours for municipalities receiving county CRF funds. The highlight of last week's office hours was to review the updated Treasury guidance on eligible capital expenditures. And here we're talking about mostly equipment and some property improvements that are related to social distancing. We're continuing to work with the county in developing materials to support municipalities, other subrecipients, and the county as well to ensure that they have the correct documentation for their capital expenditures and the correct justifications to ensure that Treasury will allow these expenses. In addition, we continued our weekly meeting with the county to discuss progress on FEMA public assistance. We continued our bi-weekly office hours with the county last Wednesday, providing municipalities with an update on the guidance referenced earlier. We provided feedback to the county on the eligibility of expenses submitted by EMS stations as well as by NGOs for CRF. We also worked with an NGO in developing a strong narrative justification for their proposed CRF expenses. We discussed with the county the above referenced new guidance as well as some updated Treasury guidance on small business grants. We also discussed the recently released desk review procedures from Treasury OIG, and this document reviews the procedures that OIG will undertake for its compliance monitoring of CRF funds. We completed our review of this document yesterday. We provided the county with an overview and key highlights about what to expect. We also provided feedback to the county on the eligibility of expenses submitted by municipalities for CRF, and this week we worked with the municipality in developing a strong narrative justification for their proposed CRF expenses. Finally, we drafted a weekly newsletter for municipalities to keep them apprised of the new guidance and upcoming deadlines. As I think we've mentioned in previous weeks, on November 1st, municipalities were required to submit a report to the county on their use of CRF funds to date and their expectations of what they plan to spend by December 30th. This is an important touch point that the county will use to ensure that municipalities are on track and so that, that they are getting any support they need in order to spend all of their funds by December 30th. Moving on to our activities, we are continuing touch points and outreach to key stakeholders, continuing to monitor updates at the federal and state level related to new guidance, potential funding opportunities. We continue our weekly review of county COVID-19 expenditures. as well as our support to the county staff leading the CRF pillar programs. And finally, we've taken on the submission of the county's second reimbursement request to FEMA and continue to support the first. Our areas for discussion today will be the pillars of focus and county spend update. We're also going to, as I mentioned, have a FEMA overview as well. Any questions on this slide before we move on? Okay, if not, we can move to the next slide, and I will turn it over to Sean to provide an update on the FEMA public assistance.
Sure, thank you, Rachel. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Like Rachel alluded to, we've been working with several members of the Budget Department on getting what has been a bit of an arduous process, getting the first PW submitted, but I think we're in a place now where we finally know what FEMA is actually expecting of us. We've got, I believe, something close to 40 inquiries have been put out to non-county entities to get some confirmation for PPE that was used. This is one of the requests that FEMA made to us. We got our first response back this morning from the city of Colleyville, so we hope to see responses come in relatively quickly on that. Once we have those responses, we'll be in a relatively good place to finally submit the first PW. And while those activities are going on, we're concurrently going through and applying this new lens that we have, actually seeing how FEMA is going to be implementing this COVID guidance in the field, applying that lens to the remainder of costs so that we can carve out what costs will need to be or likely be reimbursed through FEMA PA versus what would have to be applied to another funding source.
Any questions on this slide for Sean? Okay, if not, we can move on to slide 3, which is the pillars of focus. So this slide captures high-level updates from the county's CRF programming. There's no updates this week on this slide, but as the court knows, the county is actively working on CRF programs with support from Guidehouse. Any questions here before we move on? Okay, so we can move on to the grant slide.
Can you go back to that, please?
Sure.
Can you give a little bit of background into the partnerships for chambers with chambers of commerce? And I think all of us might have received correspondence, possibly yesterday, from you that your thought was that they did qualify for some reimbursements, COVID related. And where might we be in that process of recognizing that? This was a question that was brought to the court probably a month ago, 3 weeks ago. That's why.
Yes, of course. So here, where it mentions partnerships with Chamber of Commerce, this is from the initial partnership. So back, several months ago, when the county issued awards for the chambers to support, I believe, with marketing and promotion for the small business grants, but I might not be remembering that one correctly. So the update that you're referring to is, we discussed potentially if there was, if it would be eligible to provide operating grants for chambers of commerce. And then we looked into that, and it is possible. This is an eligible CRF expense. It just can't overlap with any small business grants or assistance that the county is already doing. And so we're just speaking with the county about, what might be possible as far as a program for this. And so, yeah, we're just in discussions on that now.
So, GK, it's your staff. Have you discussed this at all?
Where's Lisa? Oh, I'm sorry. Lisa, have we had conversations with the Guidehouse on this?
Commissioner, we have 10 chambers that that entered into professional services agreement and for promotion of not only the small business but also other Care for Tarrant programs. And I think it was a little bit over approximately $43,000 total based on the formula that we came up with per member. We had some chambers that are very much promoting our grant program, but they chose not to take the CARES Act funding.
Okay, that's not what I'm talking about at all. You're talking about, please don't leave.
Yeah.
You're talking about the program where we pay the chambers per member to promote our small business grants. That's not what I'm talking about. The chambers have asked from day one, were they eligible, similar to a business, for COVID-related reimbursements? That's what this question was brought up a few weeks ago, that I'm assuming Guidehouse has looked into, and that's what I thought they were referring to with the memo that they sent out yesterday.
They are a nonprofit, and
I understand.
And under the programs we have currently, that level of nonprofit was not able to be funded through our NGO or our small business program. Would they be eligible if there was a separate program? I take it from Guidehouse that they would. It's just that the funding couldn't overlap with what they're doing with the small business.
Okay.
I understand.
GK, I'm not getting the answer on.
I understand. I understand your question. So let me.
I'm talking two different things.
I understand.
The chambers, we hired them to promote a program. That is not what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I understand what you're asking. You're asking not the promotional aspect, but what type of impact that if the impact that the chambers have had because of the coronavirus, is that a reimbursable? Guidehouse is now telling us yes, it is. We'll need to go back and we will. And we'll
what are we doing to accommodate that?
I don't believe we're doing anything at this time. But if that's the will, then we will begin to put that program together, because it shouldn't be that difficult because we don't have that many chambers. That
question was brought up here. That's why they gave us an answer, because we brought it up in a discussion here.
Okay. Commissioner, then I'll take responsibility for that. That I didn't know we had to take away on that, but we understand now that we do, and we'll make sure we get on it right away.
Okay, in their memo they sent out yesterday, I think Lisa indicated she'd seen it. Is correct?
Yeah, the memo that Guidehouse sent to the court members, I have not seen it, but
it addressed the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. I understand what your question is. Okay, and I understand what the issue is. Let us bring something back to you next week on this, okay? Okay.
And to clarify, what I was trying to say is that we really just started this discussion, and so when I said that we are working with the county to move forward, we've really just started that based on finding out recently, as we mentioned to you, that this would be an eligible expense, and so I'm not sure that everybody in the county's had a chance to dive into this in the fall, and it's really just an issue of timing. We've just started this discussion.
We'll get on it this week.
Okay.
Any other questions on this slide before we move on? Okay, so we can move on to the next slide, which is the grant slide. You all see? Okay, so here we provide an overview of the county's grants. There are no new awards to report, and the county's total grant revenue is $239 million. Expenditures related to these grants, including CRF, are captured on the next slide. Any questions here before we move on?
I will say on this particular slide, when you look at the very bottom, the Center for Tech and Civil Life that Elections has received, there is an item on the agenda today for us to accept that grant. So that will move into a different column next week.
That's right. So we can move on to our final slide, which is the revenue expenditures. We are revamping our expenditure slide in a conversation with the county. So today we're just going to focus on our revenue and expenditure wrap-up slide. Beginning with FEMA PA, as we mentioned in previous weeks, the county has submitted its first PW, which is the reimbursement request, of which 75% is allocated to FEMA and 25% would be allocated to the county's CRF fund as to constitute the local match, which is the requirement. That 75% portion is seen here under earmarked, and as we discussed, we will be submitting an additional reimbursement request to FEMA, but going forward, we won't be including an estimate here until we have finalized the request with the amount of eligible expenditures. So those we're going to continue to see in the CRF fund instead until we have more confirmation of a sense of how much we actually expect to get from FEMA now that we're closer to that point. Moving on to CRF, the relief fund, the county has spent $106 million from its direct distributions. Separately, we estimate an additional $6 million is CRF eligible. And just a reminder that these are not all of the expenses that are eligible for CRF from the county. These are just the ones that have been categorized to date. So, for example, the county has a number of additional expenses planned related to the programs that have been in a discussion in recent weeks. In addition, the county is eligible to submit a number of its public health and safety salaries for the CRF, and the county is considering all eligible expenses and its ongoing management of cost projections through December 30th with support from Guidehouse. So just again, this $6 million does not encompass everything that's eligible. We are having a lot of conversations about, planning out the rest of the remaining of the 2 months and making sure that the county is in a position to spend down and deplete its CRF allocation by the required deadline, and the county is on track for that. So also shown here under eligible expenses is 25% local match required for FEMA. As mentioned above, this would be considered an eligible expenditure, as again, FEMA has not yet approved the reimbursement request, so it's not a final number. The county still has about $69 million in earmarked CRF funds. These are based on the funds that were budgeted for each CRF pillar. These funds are budgeted through December 30th, and so you can expect to see this amount decrease on a weekly basis as programs continue to incur funds. This leaves an estimated $27.8 million CRF funds that have not been allocated to one of the pillars. So as mentioned earlier, there are a number of pillar programs and other eligible expense categories that these funds can and likely will be applied to once the earmarked funds have been expended. Finally, the county has been awarded about $24 million in additional federal funds separate from FEMA and CRF. These are the multiple grants. These are restricted grants. The county has spent about $4.5 million, leaving $20 million yet to be spent. And that $20 million is considered earmarked because these correspond to budgets for restricted grants. And so, and also note that these grants all have different end dates, and so the $20 million does not need to be spent down by December 30th. So in total, looking at that final pie chart, the county has spent about $124 million, has about $88 million earmarked, and there's $27 million remaining. Any questions on this slide or on our presentation in general? Okay, so now that wraps up our presentation, and we'll turn it back to GK.
Thank you, Rachel. If I could go over just a little more detail, and we sent out the report yesterday. I think Redmond sent it to all the court members. It's the Care for Tarrant program updates. Just a few things. First of all, the second round of small business assistance has opened up. It runs through November 10th. While the document here shows that we have now received 1,585 submittals, but what we do know is that as of this morning, I believe we added an additional 300, so we're about 1,800. We're doing a lot more promotions to reach out to the small businesses, contacting those that might not have completed their application from the first round to see if they want to complete their applications for the second round. We're also doing some social media aspects as it relates to this, and we believe that this number will pick up significantly. On the COVID-19 testing, you can see the results of last week, 7,630. Just several announcements. First of all, in Precinct 2, we are finalizing the opening of 2 sites in Precinct 2. I believe that we had targeted the November 9th period whenever we would begin those 2 sites. And in Precinct 4, we are working with the City of Azle and maybe one other location to open up a permanent site in Precinct 4 also. And once we get those sites open up, we will then have permanent sites stood up in each of the 4 precincts. On the rental assistance, these numbers have begun to increase. We're doing a major marketing push for the rental assistance program. We're doing social media. We're doing mailings to all apartments in Tarrant County with the exclusion of those that are in Fort Worth. We're doing radio spots, and I believe that we will get a much more aggressive response to the rental assistance program in the very near future. We're also putting up signs at the apartment complexes so that the residents can see that if they need rental assistance, that it's available. We're also reaching out to the landlords because there's still this feeling that since you can't evict me, I don't have to pay rent. And so we're moving through the landlords to go to those renters that owe back rent to make them understand that there's a program that can assist them, and hopefully that will show that we will have even larger numbers as we move forward. On the non-governmental assistance programs, what is not showing on this particular chart, as we did with Meals on Wheels earlier today, we committed another $644,000. We're working with some additional non-governmental agencies that will boost that number, and we intend to continue to bring those to the Commissioners Court on a weekly basis. I believe that we have another one that we're going to be talking about today also on our agenda. Finally, on the municipal distributions, it's interesting. We know that at least half of the money that we have issued to the municipalities has already been spent, and so that's a good sign. We're working with those municipalities. Guidehouse and Russell Schaffner from our office is leading that effort, and we are fully confident that by the time that we get close to December 30th, all of that money will be spent by those municipalities. We intend to bring, I think, Russell, either next week or week after next, 2 very large additional municipal partnership agreements to you all. One is with MHMR, and that'll be a multi-million-dollar request that we're going to bring to you. Also, the 911 district is another large grant request that we're going to bring to you. We're finalizing the paperwork as relates to those 2 particular programs, and we should have them, I believe we'll have them up to you within the next 2 weeks. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions on the update. Your Honor, there's no additional questions on the update. I'm going to ask Kristen to come up and do items 2, 3, and 4.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning. Item 2 is a request for an approval to pay accumulated fees on behalf of applicants receiving assistance through the Care for Tarrant Rental Assistance Program.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Don't give us too much information. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next item is a request for approval to change the expenditure deadline to December 30th, 2020 for agreements previously approved through the Care for Tarrant NGO Assistance Program. Those dates are currently, the expenditure deadline is currently October 31st, which is just passed. Many of our NGO agreements have funds remaining to be expended. We'd like to extend the deadline to December 30th to allow them to expend those already awarded funds.
Move
for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I got concerns about going up to December the 30th because that doesn't, if they oops it, we don't have a chance to correct it.
Right, it's a reimbursement request, so they'll have until January 15th to submit their final reimbursement invoice for processing.
So if we get the final invoice in on January the 15th and we don't approve it for whatever the reason, what happens to that money?
They don't get it.
What do we do with that money?
What we're doing, we're working with the NGOs on a weekly basis to track their expenses, and we're making sure that they understand that you've got to get these things in. Don't hold them back. Send them in whenever you have.
And I understand that, but I just hate to make it December the 30th and we get there and they haven't spent it. Right. I'd rather make it December the 20th, which at least gives budget and our department 10 days to find some way to spend that money.
Okay.
We just wanted to expand the expenditure.
I agree 100% on that. I just I hate to take it up to the.
I'll amend my motion to reflect December the 20th.
Will you accept that, Commissioner Allen?
I will.
So our motion and second, so it's now to give them, extend their time frame up to December the 20th.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The following, the next item is a request for approval of an agreement with Catholic Charities Diocese of Fort Worth for the distribution of CRF as part of the NGO program. This is a second award for Catholic Charities. This came from the Housing Finance Corporation request. This is one of the remaining requests that we were able to work through. The amount of $40,000.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do. I think I'm confused on, I understand that this is for mortgage assistance. And so are there other of our organizations that we're working with through the NGO program that are providing mortgage assistance? And I think maybe I need some clarification on CRF dollars being used for mortgage assistance.
Sure. So this is the first one that we will have approved for mortgage assistance. They provided some pretty extensive data to show the need that remains. We have not received requests for mortgage assistance. There hasn't been an overwhelming need that's been established until the Catholic Charities request, and so we're hoping that this will at least satisfy the request that they've received related to COVID-19. And then if if you or anyone else has heard that there's an additional need, we can address that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Members of the court, on item number 6, Ms. McMillan is going to address the court on that particular item.
Judge, Commissioners, a few months ago, the City of Hazlet brought forward to you some information briefing you on the creation of an 1,146-acre tax increment reinvestment zone located in the undeveloped land bounded by Interstate 35 on the east and FM 156 on the west, as shown in the map right here. This tax increment reinvestment zone was created to facilitate facilitate the development of new residential and commercial within the zone that would then pay for the construction of a new Hazlet Parkway, a new east-west thoroughfare that would connect to Highway 170 on the other side of 35, and as well as the extension of Intermodal Parkway. Those projects are shown in the blue lines within that TIF district. So today we have before you the participation agreement for that tax increment financing district. The City of Hazlet is contributing 50% of its incremental tax revenues to the zone, estimated to be approximately $7.9 million over the life of the TERS. The participation agreement today has the county's contribution also at 50%, up to a maximum contribution of just over $6.2 million. We're requesting today your approval of the resolution and participation agreement as provided.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Members of the court, on item number 7, we're requesting that the court approve an agreement between Tarrant County and Challenge of Tarrant County for professional services related to adult and youth recovery case management.
Move
for approval.
Second.
Pickett. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 8, we're not requesting any action from the court today as relates to this particular one. We are going to keep this on the agenda so that we can take action whenever there is a necessity as we move through the election process. With that, Your Honor, that's all of our section.
Ms. Glenn?
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion second to receive and file personnel agenda. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning and thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Glenn.
Judge, if I could just make one announcement this morning, please. I want to remind all of our employees and our retirees who might be listening in that annual enrollment is underway. We have until November 11th, which is next Wednesday, to complete our enrollment. So if you have not, then please do so. Of course, staff in the benefits unit on the third floor stand ready to assist any employee who needs assistance. And just as a reminder, to, again, all employees and our retirees, remember, this is the opportunity that you have, the one opportunity that you have to make elections that will be in place from January 1st of next year through December 31st, unless you have a qualifying event, a child, a marriage, etc. So now's the time to take action. Please do so and call us if you need assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, Information Technology.
Good morning, Your Honor, court members. We have one item for the court's consideration this morning. It's requested that the Commissioners' Court approve the notice and consent agreement for Microsoft-funded solution assessment engagement for our Azure data platform for integrated justice.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? What is that from the, let's see, Wonderful Life? That means an angel was just, yeah, we need a couple of those. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Vinny, come on down.
So we have one item for your consideration this morning. It's a request for approval of a contract for services with University of North Texas Health Science Center to provide ethical research review of human subjects protocol for Tarrant County Public Health. In short, they serve as our institutional review board for any research that we may conduct through our clinics. I think the cost of the agreement is about $5,000, and they've had this long-standing with us for a long time.
Move for approval.
Oh, second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vinny. Mr. Beecham, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of looking forward to baseball season.
I'm okay with it. You do know we play you guys at our house this year, don't you? I'll still be employed with the county at that time, too.
Who did you play Saturday?
A&M.
Oh, well, how'd that come out?
We lost by 11.
Which was a whole lot less than what we lost by.
Merry Christmas.
Auburn.
We have 6 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-101, submitted for the Scott D. Moore Juvenile Justice Center Fire Alarm System Replacement Project. Recommendation would be to award to the low bidder meeting specifications Advanced System Alarm Services, the amount of $240,064. If approved, we're seeking contract approval from the court, as well as acceptance of the payment and the performance bond.
Second.
We have motions and seconds. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-189. This is a new annual contract for audiovisual technician temporary staffing for the IT department. Recommendation will be to award a per hourly labor rate, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-196. This is a bid for a general contractor for the Criminal Justice Building Elevator Replacement Project. Recommendation would be to award the low bidder being specifications, CMP Commercial Construction, the amount of $187,992. If approved, again, we're seeking contract approval, acceptance of the payment, and the performance bond.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and then this will then fall under our normal maintenance contract with the other company.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-220, signing a contract for motor graders to be used by all precincts if necessary. Recommendation would be to award on a per enterprise basis, awarding to the 2 primary vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-004, signing a contract for traffic and crowd control equipment. Recommendation would be awarded on a per enterprise basis, awarding to Safety Zone America on a per enterprise basis.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Last item number 6, also a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-007, bid for the Correction Center Chiller Replacement Project. Recommendation would be to award the low bidder meeting specifications, awarding to Infinity Contractors International, amount of $1,598,302. Again, if we're approved, we're seeking contract approval, acceptance of the payment, and the performance bond.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Commissioner Allen, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
Yes, I have 2, and with that, I move for approval of items K1, A, B, C, and D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Johnson, you have an interlocal agreement.
I do. Has this been approved by the DA's office?
It has, Commissioner.
I move approval of item 9K, 2A, and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today? There being none, then we'll move on, and you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We've done our briefing items, so we will now recess our open meeting to proceed to close to discuss items exempted under section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
Don't forget to call us.
Yes, sir.
How heavy is the voting around the county? Have you heard, Judge?
Say again?
How heavy is the voting in the county?
I don't know if we've got that number or not.
It's about 50,000 so far.
Having returned from closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time, we stand adjourned.
Good luck to everybody. Thank you, Commissioner.